All right, hello everyone. We have a light day today since it's summer and not a lot of people are here. But today is let's talk about situations that you might be going through, questions you might have, could be contract related, situation related to anything real estate. So before we jump into one situation we have here, I want to see if anybody online or in the audience locally has something that they would like to talk about. All right, so I see people are just joining. We're doing a speak up, ask questions, or share a scenario, maybe something you have learned recently in real estate or a situation that happened to you that you would like to share to let everyone know about. Okay, I think you can unmute yourself, right, Vince? Are they able to do that?
Let me check. Charles, can you please unmute yourself and see if you can do that?
Like 5.
It's getting bigger.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Read upon entry, enable waiting, unmute themselves. Okay, you can unmute yourself now.
Okay, cool.
Charles, could you do that for me? We just want to test. Or Vanessa,
Anybody?
could you unmute yourself real quick just so we can test?
Anyone, Bueller?
Oh, actually, they probably can.
Oh, that's probably.
Hey guys, Vanessa, can you come off of mute?
Yeah, we're having technical issues here. We'll figure it out.
Unmute themselves. How about now, Vanessa? Ask Vanessa.
Vanessa, are you able to unmute yourself? You can just unmute and say hello if you can. We're trying to figure out if you're able to. Or literally anyone on Zoom. Can you please let us know? Or you can put in the chat, no, I can't, or yes, I can.
Hello.
Hello, yay, okay, so we are able. All right, perfect, thank you, Vanessa.
You're
So
welcome.
if anyone has questions, comments, a situation that they would like to share with us, please let us know. Today is about talking about what we've been going through in real estate, what we're seeing recently. So I would love to hear from you. So I'm gonna give you a couple of minutes, and then if we don't have anyone mention anything, we're gonna have a great.
Yeah, they're waiting.
Yeah, we have a good thing to talk about today too. Yeah. Okay.
Just for the guy.
Yeah, Paul, do you have anything?
No.
Okay.
Wanted to talk.
No. Okay, so Ashley, do you want to come up here and be on the video with me? We can do like a podcast interview.
Let me get you.
Me too. But here we are every
For
week.
this, I'm gonna go on the TV if I have to.
Yeah, this is great.
Get me a chair.
Okay, I'll scoot mine over a little bit. We can be twins squished together.
There you go.
So we don't need 2 mics then, right?
Oh, we probably do.
Okay.
It looks better on TV.
Professional.
Looks better on TV.
All right, everyone, this is Ashley. Just don't turn around.
I see myself. There's 20 of me up there.
Okay.
At
This
least
is
you can't see
Ashley.
from the butt view.
She is a wonderful agent in our office here in Fresno on the, what's your team's name?
Russell and Flamming Real Estate Group.
That's right. Her and Barbara are
partners.
over there. She's not coming up here.
She's probably happy about that.
All right, they have recently encountered a situation of that, I'm trying to figure out a nice
It's just a
thing to
crazy
say it. It's a
situation
crazy situation.
that a seller got into.
Yes, with a company who preys on vulnerable people who need to sell their homes quickly.
Correct.
And
And-
so, thankfully, you know, we never see this side of it because usually we're not brought into this situation and until maybe we're hearing a horror story later on. But in this particular case, Barb and Ashley were fortunate enough to be brought into this mix, so we're getting an inside scoop on how these companies work. And I thought this was a great thing to let everybody know and be aware of, that this is happening to their clients potentially and what to look out for. So Ashley, can you give us a
Overview.
overview of how you got involved? First, we'll start there.
So this seller actually is a good friend of a past client of mine
Okay.
that I helped. Well, actually, my husband helped him buy the house. I had the listing then. So anyway, so that person that know me called me and said, my buddy has a situation. He's in a contract and now they're telling him things. And he asked me if I could help. And I said, well, he's already in a contract. I probably can't really help. So it got worse. And then I just asked Mike Gutierrez.
Okay.
Okay, this guy's in a contract. So I'll tell you, he's in a very small contract.
Yes, a purchase contract that is
Purchase
3/4 of a
contract
page long.
That
Versus
yes.
our 17.
And
page one.
the buyer is a company, LLC, that does like, we buy homes cash. You know those signs you see around town? We buy homes cash.
Mhm.
Okay, so they got
They're
on,
not licensed.
they're not
agents.
licensed. They just are people who buy, and we have great investors here in town. I am not saying that all the we buy homes cash are good, are bad people. These people just happen to be a little unethical, in my opinion. So they got into this contract, March 24th, supposed to close in 45 days. They had a certain period of time to walk through the property after they got in to make sure that they were still willing to pay that same price. So they're in escrow, they're in contract at $295. They did their walkthrough. The seller tells me, I was a little leery. They brought me in, they kept me in the garage, and they had people walk through my house. So what are we doing? We're wholesaling. If you've ever heard that word. So somebody buys this, they get in contract on this house, and then they immediately find somebody else to buy the contract. So, and they're gonna pay more for it. So $295 is what the contract was. The wholesaler, the person assigned to this contract is paying more.
So
Well,
the person who originally purchased it makes some money off of the
Correct.
wholesaler. Yeah.
and people know this, and I just saw a reel last night from somebody here in town that said, I'll buy those. I don't care how much you're making. But here's the bad part about it for me. It broke my heart. They think they prey again on people, I think elderly, they prey on people who don't know. People don't know, sellers don't know what they don't know. So they came back to him and said later on, closer to when they were gonna close, they said, oh, you have liens on the property. We need to reduce the price. Okay, we all know when there's liens on a property, who handles them? Who pays them off? The seller through escrow. Okay, the escrow company is also, in some of our research, we feel like they're owned by the same entity, the same
Out of
group
area.
of people out of area. This one happens to be down south. Anyways, so this person contacted the guy I know, and that guy contacted me while I was on vacation in Montana and said, Ashley, blah, blah, blah. He told me the story. I just said, ask for the prelim. It'll be on there. Go get the prelim. So they got the prelim. They reviewed it. They can't see anything. He's like, Ashley, he sent me the prelim. I can't really help him because I'm not on a contract, but I reviewed the prelim and I told my friend, I said, I'm like you. I don't really see anything. The taxes are paid. There's no loans. They were telling him there's a mortgage. his mortgage was paid off years ago. We actually have a copy of the, what's the word I'm looking for? The reconveyance deed. So, anyways, so I call Mike when I get back here. We try to get him with an attorney. The attorney said, I really can't do anything because there's no lawsuit there. So, but you guys can. Why don't you guys get involved? So I asked Michael Gutierrez. I called him and said, Mike, here's the situation. Can Barb and I take this listing and then just step in to close the transaction? We're not trying to get the buyer to cancel. We're just trying to close the transaction based on the terms on this agreement. So we get involved. 30th of June, he signs it. I call escrow, I send him a copy of the listing and say, we now represent them. We represent this person, and can you please send me all the closing documents? Because they've been trying to get him to sign docs, but he was afraid to sign docs for fear that they would put something that like reducing the price or something like that.
And he had been requesting this from.
He had been
escrow, and they
requesting the
did not
closing
give
statement,
them any information.
everything, yeah. And the company that we dealt with, their TC, I'll call her, because that's what she said she is. She actually said, I sent that on June 10th. Well, when he came in to see me with Barb and I here, he handed me his phone and said, go look at all my emails. So I went through all of his emails and forwarded everything to me so I could have a copy to see what they sent him. And I went to the June 10th email and there was no closing statement in there. And, so again, we got him in here on the 2nd of July with a notary. They actually let me pick the notes, which escrow companies don't normally do, but she's on everybody's list here. So I said, she's on everybody's list. We just want to get it in here, get it done so that these guys can close. So they were, per the escrow instructions that they wrote up, the escrow said, oh, okay, we can close by the 7th then, because it's cash. On the 7th, at about 5:30 or so, I get a phone call from the TC. She said, I have my manager on the line and he wants to talk to you. And I said, okay. So the manager gets on the line and I said, what's your name? And he says the name. And I said, oh, so you're the buyer that actually signed the contract. And he said, yes, I am. So he's the CEO of this company. He's the president and CEO of this company that's buying it. So he said, we are not going to move forward with this contract. I said, great. I said, okay, send a cancellation, please. Because the seller wouldn't reduce a price for them. But they hadn't asked for official reduction yet. So, but then after he said that, he said, oh, but wait a minute, we'll close if the seller will reduce. And he said, we're not that far off. And then he said, it's 247. I don't know about you, but 295 to 247 is far off unless you're talking about millions, right? In my opinion. So I said, well, I don't present any, and this is important here. I don't present anything to my seller because they were like, we just want you to present it. We want you to, I said, I don't present anything unless it's in writing. Send me an amendment. So they did, which shows that they're still trying to stay in it. So they sent me the amendment, presented it, sent them an email, said seller's rejecting. Then, so that's 3 times. They send 3 amendments. Between those times, we're having a conversation with him, Barb and I, and we literally said, the seller is not hurting. This seller, luckily, had already bought another home. He's moved out of state. Most sellers though, where my heart broke was I'm like, what about my grandma that these people do this to? And they're sitting on the curb and they come to him and say, we have to reduce.
And why are they sitting on the curb?
Because they have them move out before they do their final inspection. And they actually postponed their final inspection because they said, oh, we want to make sure the seller's all the way out. And so that's how they do it. And then so my grandma and grandpa sitting on the curb expecting 295 and they say, oh, well, there's liens and we have to, and the things have changed and it's been a while. They kept saying it's been 4 months. It's been 4 months. We're going to get our attorney involved. We filed a list pendens. And
can you explain to everyone what that is?
Okay, a list pendens is this document right here. If somebody has filed a lawsuit against the seller, already, that's open in court, you can file a list pendens on the property to notify title that this house cannot be transferred. At that point, you can't transfer the house because I have a lawsuit against the seller. They were supposed to sell it to me and they canceled without right or whatever, anything. So they filed this lis pendens on June 30th, by the way. But it didn't show up until later. We kept checking. So anyways, so where was I now that we explained the lis pendens?
Okay,
So, they threatened they were gonna do a lis pendens, and Barb and I were in the car headed from somewhere else, and Barb said, well, what's the purpose of the lis pendens? Well, they're in breach of contract. And we literally told them, this seller is not hurting. He's already moved. He's already bought another house. You have a contract. You close on this contract at this contract price. The seller's willing to do that. And the TC literally told us, well, that's not how this works. They want to reduce the buyer wants to reduce the price. And we looked and said, actually, that's exactly how this works. You've sent an amendment, they've declined it, sellers declined it. Your buyer needs to close or cancel. Let's be done here.
Yeah, that's your two options.
Yep. So they weren't doing that. So Tuesday, we sent a demand to close. We got the broker involved, by the way. We sent a demand to close on Tuesday. So that means they had until Friday, the 9th, or no, the 11th, 7, 8, that was on the 9th. So 10, it was on the 8th, 10th, 11th. So on the 11th, Friday, the 11th was the day they were supposed to close by. They did not close. So our buyer, our seller, had decided he was talking to an attorney. So he ended up getting with an attorney. They ultimately talked Monday morning. Again, these people have sent 3 amendments. The first one was 247. The second one, after Barb and I had talked to him, they went to 270. And then was it Monday? Was it Monday or was it Friday when they were it was Friday when they were supposed to close. They send this one. This is our final offer. And I'm like, final offer? You already have a contract. This is not an offer. This is an amendment. So anyways, so that was 275. And we're like, okay, we'll present it. They sent them in writing. So I, of course, shared with the attorney. So they talked to the attorney Monday morning. And the attorney writes a really amazing letter. Sometimes attorneys don't cost as much as you think. So the attorney told me, okay, this is just what I'm being told. I'm not giving you legal advice, but this lis pendens is, in his opinion, real estate fraud, because there's absolutely no lawsuit filed against the seller. So
I didn't even know that there had to be an open lawsuit.
yes, that's
and
what lis
open
pendens means. There's
Okay.
a legal action pending, basically.
Okay.
So correct. So
we
in
don't
the
know
letter
this.
from the
Sellers aren't
attorney,
gonna know this
no,
either.
sellers aren't
Yeah.
gonna know this. This is just a threat.
Mhm.
And on a side note, they have 4 other ones this filed with the same case number. And the case number is not, that's one of the notes that the attorney said, was that case number does not comply with Fresno County's case numbers. Yeah, so so anyways, this is not valid, but I'll tell you what, escrow doesn't know that. And it's not title's job to find out. Title's job, all they know is there's this document.
Right.
So what does this document do to your house? It puts a cloud on title.
Yeah. You cannot.
You cannot close, you cannot sell it. Most sellers would be fearful. And they would be like, okay, fine, I'll take your reduction. But because we were involved, we told him, just talk to an attorney. Find an attorney, talk to an attorney. And what it's costing him in attorney's fees is not a lot. They just had to write a letter they got it Monday. On Tuesday, the attorney that filed this lis pendens sent an email to the seller's attorney and said, I've spoke to my client and they are removing the lis pendens. Exactly. They are probably, and now they're not responding. So we've asked for emails, like, hey, what's your intent? Are you closing? Because the attorney also put in the letter that they had until Friday to close. So our demand to close that expired last week is now trumped by the attorney.
Okay,
He set up a new timeline, and we've talked to Michael about this,
which is fine.
which is absolutely fine. So tomorrow, they either close escrow or cancel the contract. Of course, I can't tell you what's gonna happen. I'm gonna email the attorney and say, at this point, they're not responding to our updates for whether they're gonna close or whether they're going to cancel. But the list pendens has to be removed and we need a copy of it. On a side note, they were giving this, they were assigning this contract to a local person, and that person has called me. They did the final walkthrough, and they have actually said, are you putting that house on the market? So, I mean, we can sell these houses to our local people. We have plenty of people in town that will pay money for cash houses. This house is, I mean, Barb and I have, this is the worst house we've ever been in. I mean, the guy said, I haven't done anything to this house in 10 years. He hasn't, and he hasn't, including clean it. So we were in there. I had nowhere to set documents down I needed to sign, so we went outside. Barb was doing the Avid, and she came out and went, I had to leave that master bedroom. There's like been a water leak, and there was dark spots on the wall. So we can't use the M word, but we probably figure it might be that. So we're getting out of there, so we're not hurt. Anyways, so
But regardless of that, the $295 was still a great price.
it was a decent price, yes.
Okay.
And I mean, we ran comps, and so that was some of the things when we were having conversations with them. They said, well, the market has softened and blah, blah, blah. Well, the area this house is in, it has not. The houses are selling. I ran comps I went back to December. And in December, they were in the high 300s. And in April, they were in the 400s. And everything that has sold this year has sold in less than 20 days.
Okay.
So tell me, they're gonna fix this. It's not gonna be a hard, I mean, a investor who has the crews and gets all the stuff, you know, they get it all. They probably have a yard with the granite already in it that they bought on another job or whatever. They're not gonna put 100 grand into this house, but they're gonna sell it for way over. Me and Barb talked, and we think they could get 450 for it fixed up. That's a pretty good amount of money if they can turn it over in less than a month. You know, so anyways, and obviously the investor that was getting the assignment still wants it because their agent that did the walkthrough called me and wrote an offer. So, you know, so here's what Barb and I did. When they told me on the Monday that they were not moving forward, that to me is, okay, you're gonna cancel. So we contacted all of our investors and said, here, go check it. And we have an agent in the office that took an investor out, and they are already like, okay, as soon as you guys are ready, just tell me, I'll write it up. So it's there, it's the seller's fine, the seller's not hurting right now.
Not sitting on the curb waiting for their money.
He's not. He's actually
Let alone
already in
offer.
his new home
Yeah,
in Kentucky.
right.
But what is happening though is these guys had an agreement. So where the seller could be damaged is they put this cloud on title. They stopped him from being able to sell it. And the new buyer is not paying the $295. They're probably going to pay a little less. But that's where he could talk to an attorney. He probably won't, but you know, we don't know. He has an attorney already. He can ask the attorney all kinds of questions. The attorney actually did ask me, can we keep their deposit? This agreement, this one-page little agreement they wrote, doesn't speak to the seller canceling the contract. It speaks to the buyer canceling the contract. So this, what is it? 10 point, and 2 of those are parties, property, purchase price, closing date and transfer, as is condition, closing costs, prorations, impound, security deposits, possession, access, and default. That's it. That's all it is. And the default is all, if the buyer, it protects the buyer really.
The moral of the story is that they're a predator and out there preying on.
Yes.
Yeah,
And-
Barb's saying that the moral of the story is there's predators out there that are preying on people. So when I was talking to this TC, I'll call her. So I actually asked her, she got irritated because I actually asked her when she was saying something to me, I'm like, are you licensed? Because I was like, gosh, she must not understand the contract. And she said, I take offense that you're acting as if I'm licensed, so I don't know what I'm doing. We have 93 files and 35 of those are closing this month. And I'm like heart wrenched, like, oh, I wanted to say thanks for sharing with me that you're hurt. You're probably trying to
Taking advantage of
take advantage of
93 people.
93 more people. And anyway, so we did get some recordings, less pendens that were recorded by the same company. And we have 5, which it included the one that we're dealing with, that we have a listing on. And there's one other in Fresno, there's one in Visalia, Bakersfield, and Oroville. So they're not sticking right here. We need to get the word out.
Yeah,
And
and this is great information for everybody to take with them, that if you have maybe talking to a seller who has a cash offer, now you have insight to exactly what they're going to do. And that original price that they put on that first half a page offer is not gonna be what they're gonna sell for. And they're gonna trick the seller, they're gonna, lie about there being liens is a number one, there weren't liens. And even if there were, that's not how it works. You don't reduce the price because the buyer's paying the liens. The seller would still have to pay the lien off and then get less for their property.
And then one other note, they also, gosh, I wrote across my fingers and now I'm like, dang it, what was I gonna say? This is it. Oh, and I was like, oh, this is an age thing. That's exactly what I was gonna say. So he is sick, this seller is 66 years old. California law, the elder abuse is 65 and over. So we had a call with Michael Gutierrez, me, Barb, and the buyer and his TC. And Michael actually during this call, Michael's amazing, by the way. During this call, he said, Ashley, how old is he? And I was like, he's over 65. And then I kind of pulled up. I actually shot him a text and said, how old are you? Because I didn't have his birthday in front of me, but I knew he was over 65 and he said 66. So Michael mentioned that and they got so defensive. He is of right mind and blah, blah, blah. And Michael says, we're not saying that. The attorney referenced that in the letter that this gentleman is 66 and per California statute, blah, blah, blah. Also noted that because the attorney actually filed this, that is fraud and the attorney can be held. So our client is filing a complaint and this attorney has a broker's license. So our client is filing a complaint with the DRE, the state bar, and the DA's office here in Fresno.
Good, good.
So we asked the attorney, so they said we should also file a complaint because the more they get, the more they look at it.
Against this.
Against the attorney,
Okay,
because
not
we
the
were
company?
involved.
Is there anything we can do with the
Well,
company?
and the company, since none of them are licensed, it's really
Okay.
hard because they're not held to a standard.
You don't have
These-
to my business, we can email them too.
I know, they do, and no joke, Barb and I yesterday, I was fired up. I don't know if you guys have ever noticed how passionate I can be when somebody's getting hurt. But I was pissed off. Excuse me, I know that's not a cuss word, but it's pretty bad to say. But I get very passionate about taking advantage of people. And thank God our seller had the wherewithal to just say, yeah, no, he just quit contacting them. So to me, as an older gentleman, he thought it was scam. Like, oh, they're telling me I have liens. I know I don't have liens. My house has been free and clear for years. And so thank goodness he knew he didn't have liens, but he also asked somebody for help because then I said, ask for the closing statement and ask for the preliminary title report. And he got the preliminary title report and they looked through it and there are no liens on it. I have a copy of it because when we took over, we had to get copies of everything. And they actually said, well, we sent him a notice to perform. Well, I'll be honest with you, this document doesn't speak to a notice to perform.
Yeah.
It doesn't say they can send him one, but I said, well, send me a copy of it. They won't send me a copy of it. And, he was supposed to close per the contract. It was supposed to close May 9th. So they kept saying, well, we're 4 months. This is 4 months. It's been going on for 4 months. And so when we were on the phone with Mike, I'm all about dates. Contracts are about dates. They're very important. Dates are very important. You should all know that. I know you've mentioned it before, don't have a seller counteroffer 2 signed and then the 1 signed
Later.
after it. It
Mhm.
should be, it has to tell story. The offer, the counteroffer, the next counteroffer, it has to be dated. The offer, yeah, all of it. But, so I said, no, you were supposed to close the 9th. And the buyer got mad. He was like, Ashley, blah, 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 blah. And I quit listening to him because I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna get my word in. Because if you know me, I'm pretty stubborn. Red hair, stubborn. So, I did. After he was done talking, I said, okay, let's be clear on the dates. March 24th, contract execution, close of escrow, May 9th. We are 2 months, we're only 2 months from closing, and that's because he felt he was being scammed because you were trying to change the price. And they were not happy. And they said, well, we're just not gonna agree on this. This is how that we have the right to change the price. It's like, we're
In
not
what
gonna
world?
agree on this. So
And can you imagine
anyways,
a seller who doesn't have representation and they're gonna believe them?
yes, they are. And it's not escrow telling them there's liens, it's the buyer. They're not held. Escrow is held. And the buyer can tell them whatever, but in the letter, that the attorney wrote Mike's story that the seller said that you have told him there are liens and this is a blasphemy lie. He put some fancy word in there. I loved it. Wish I had the letter in front of me, but I don't. But he basically said you did this, you filed the list pendens to coerce the
Yeah,
seller into
exactly.
reducing.
Exactly.
So 1, real estate fraud, 2, your coercion.
Mhm.
We're not allowed to coerce, right?
Mhm.
And they've kept calling him even after we told them to stop calling the seller. We represent them. So every email I have is also, I have told you, I've asked you not to call the seller directly. We are his representation. Everybody at your company, at question mark company, you need to direct not to call him. Because he told me as of even, what's today, Thursday, so yesterday, Tuesday, after they got notification that well, they got the attorney's letter on Monday. Tuesday, they had somebody call him and say, we want to work with you directly again. So we have beat into our seller's head. Do not answer. Do not talk to them. Tell them to call us. I said, now you can tell them, call my attorney.
Yep.
Because he did retain an attorney. So just so you guys know, if something like this does happen, there are attorneys out there, and we know one for sure that will take it and not like screw them over. You know, they're not going, I can't say, I know this attorney person, I've known him for years, but I know a few attorneys and I always give multiple names, but this attorney I've worked with previously in the past, because I had a 7-day escrow and the seller died on day 4. And Warren Fortier is buying the house. So it was Warren's attorney that got involved and helped us. But he actually, because he knows me, is willing to take payment through escrow, because he knew that he knows that if the seller, if it doesn't pay or he gets a document signed, but if something happens, he knows I will pay him if I had to, because it's not an exorbitant amount of money. It's people think, oh, it's going to cost me $10,000 to get an attorney. Nope, it's not. Just ask the question.
Mhm.
So if you ever run into something like this, just tell them, you can say, I can't tell you what to do, but I would recommend you not sign anything and you hire me. And this seller is so happy to be paying us because he was so frustrated. He walked out of here on June 30th and he went and told my friend. I felt so much better after meeting with Barb and Ashley. I was relieved when I walked out the door. And we literally went there the next day. He was packing up and he said, I'm leaving. I said, great, leave. We will handle we don't need you here. Everything that needs done, if these guys don't close, we'll send a notary to you.
Mhm.
You know, there'll be a notary that goes to his house or wherever in Kentucky. So we're very happy that we stopped one of them.
Yeah.
And
And now you're sharing this insight with us of what it actually looks like to be involved with one of these.
there
companies.
is one going right now that we actually got word about, that we don't know if it's exactly the same company, we assume it is. And they are threatening a less pendens on the property, and just, it so happens that an investor got involved that knows us, so, yeah. But the investor's giving the seller what they need. So they're gonna close it.
Yeah.
But
Good. Well,
It's
thank you
just
for
sad.
sharing all of that with us.
So does anybody have any
Crazy.
questions?
Yeah, any questions or comments on this situation?
Ask the sellers for a Google, my Google listing review.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah, they will definitely, I'm sure his friend will have to help him. He's kind of challenged, but I walked him through digital signature online. He was like, okay, how do I do this? And so I just said, well, read this, go through here. And it was good because we actually got to talk about the document. You know, it wasn't like I'm just sending it to him and then he's just signing it. He was doing it. I was walking him through it and I said, this is what you're signing. You know, that's good. We should do that all the time.
Actually,
Yeah.
got a question from online.
Oh,
Would you be
somebody's-
able to share the attorney's name?
I don't see why I can't tell you the attorney. Just don't expect him to take payment through escrow. That's the only thing I would say
Yeah,
is
yeah.
he might, and he's a busy attorney, so thank God it only was a writing of a letter. But I can tell you the two attorneys for sure that I use, and one of them, it's Ryan Janice at Larson Lindenau. And full disclosure, my daughter actually is a paralegal there. So she, it was nice because I could call her and say, who should I use? And I just happen to know Ryan. And then, Jared Marshall at, what's that one up here? Ryan, what's that, used to be Dowling Aaron. You don't, yeah,
Yeah.
used to be Dowling Aaron. There's something else now. Sorry. Totally lost their name, but I can look it up. That's kind of the
Okay.
two that seem to be my go-to. They're both very busy attorneys though. So, you just have to, if something happens, just call me and I'll give you my daughter's number, or if they are okay with that, or she can give me also, cause she used to work at Dowling. So, she can give me somebody for you to connect with and then talk to them and say, is he willing to take it? Cause that's what you really need is the front desk or somebody, one of the paralegals that can actually talk to you. And then they have to run their conflict checks and stuff like that to make sure they're not representing the actual party.
Got a question from Summer, Jessica.
Okay. I have a seller that keeps changing her mind about selling and she is an escrow with a buyer. I am double ending it. Do you have any advice on how to kindly tell the seller she is subject to lawsuit if she backs out now?
That's a good
You
one.
can simply say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. She
Has the buyer
doesn't
performed?
have to, that's true. Yeah,
Is the buyer
so,
performing?
okay, so has the buyer done everything contractually that they need to do? Or is there a way that the seller can get out of selling? But done everything right, okay, yeah, then,
They remove all their contingencies.
yeah, so if they've removed the contingencies, done everything is gone with the timeline, whatnot, ready to close and seller doesn't want to, obviously you can't force the seller to close, but you would definitely let them know that they could possibly be opening themselves up for lawsuit or
She's got
performance to
lending it.
close.
She's gotta be really careful.
She has to be
She's got
very
lending it.
careful because she
Yeah.
represents both parties.
She's gotta be really careful. She ought
It's
to
the
loop you in.
Tough part about the
Because
lending.
rights to cancel.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And buyers can issue a demand to close.
Are
Yes.
saying that the sellers have very little right to cancel and the buyer can issue a demand to close to the seller on that,
Mhm.
so.
Yeah,
And
you're
that is
tricky.
something, and they still, so some sellers, you could also note that you did your job and your broker can still get a paycheck. Can
Yeah.
get compensation, even if it doesn't close, you're still entitled.
Yeah. Maybe is there a reason why the seller wants to back out, or? If they have a legit reason, then maybe your buyer will be understanding and it won't be an issue, but
They
We
want their
never
money
know.
back.
yeah. She is crazy, is what you meant.
Oh, we're recording this.
I'll blank that out, guys.
Okay. Okay. All right, Any-
We all have those
we
kind of
do.
people.
we do.
And yeah, you just, I mean, I agree with Barb that the seller has very little right to cancel, and I think once you tell her that this buyer could, you know, have damages that take her to court for, it's not worth paying all the money to go to court. I mean, and, you know, you're right, that the seller might have some real legitimate reason, I have cancer now and I don't wanna move. You know, a buyer might be very understanding, but they might want all the money they've put out for the
Right.
appraisal and
Which would be
the-
fair.
which all of that would be fair to say, great, I will cancel, but you're gonna pay me, you're gonna give me money for all the expenses that I have had to pay.
But she needs to loop in her manager. over
She
it.
does need
Yeah,
to.
definitely loop in your manager, make sure you got eyes on that.
So nobody has any more questions for
Yeah.
me?
Any other questions for Ashley, Barb?
Thanks,
Doesn't
guys.
seem
Thanks for
like it.
sharing that story. That's a happy ending.
Yeah,
We're
Well,
hoping-
hopefully,
we're
we'll find out
hoping
on
to help
Friday.
Another person, we found one in Fresno, and Barb actually, we got her phone number, we Googled, and we think we might have her phone number, and Barb sent a text message yesterday.
Okay.
But of course, you gotta be careful, she might think it's, you know,
Spam.
part of the scam,
Mhm.
so we're just trying, she doesn't live in Fresno, the house is in Fresno, so.
Okay.
we're just
All right.
kind of peeps.
Does anybody else have any other questions or anything they want to share before we end today's? No? Okay then, guys, thank you for sharing and listening, and hopefully that was insightful to everyone. All right, I will see you guys later.